Now, who should be here? Who should be here in this webinar? Who is this webinar for? This webinar is for you if you are an intelligent professional and you have interviews coming up. Okay, you should have interviews now. They can be interviews that you're planning on doing, or interviews that are imminent, that are coming up soon. You could even be a student, because if you're a student and you're professionally minded, then this can work for you. But you need to have interviews coming up, because we're going to be talking about a couple of things that you need to have control over if you want to do well, if you want to crush your next interview. Just two things. So you're intelligent, you're professional or professionally minded, you have interviews coming up, and as always, as I always tell you guys, try to be honest with you. The fastest and the best way for you to take your speech to the next level is to work with me one-on-one. So I'm going to be inviting you to meet with me, to have a private free consultation with me where we'll talk about what that might look like for you. So this webinar is also for, along with the Pro 90 speech system, it's for people who want to take their speech to the next level. That is, they want to become excellent speakers. So this webinar is not going to be good for you, nor will the Pro 90 speech system. It will not be good for you if you only want to stop stuttering. Now, can it work? Of course it can. But more than likely, it's going to require more of you that you may not want to give if all you want to do is stop stuttering, which is totally fine, obviously. This system is really designed for ambitious people, intelligent, ambitious professionals who need to be able to speak well. Okay, that's who this is for. So if you're watching this webinar and that's not you, this is not going to be the best webinar, and the Pro 90 speech system is not going to be the best system for you. There are other programs and therapies that can just get you up to mediocre where maybe you're not stuttering. Just remember, not stuttering doesn't get you extra points. It doesn't get you the job. It doesn't make you a great speaker. There are billions of people who don't stutter, and many of them, some of them at least, are terrible speakers, terrible presenters, terrible communicators. So just because a person doesn't stutter doesn't make them an effective communicator. This program is designed for people who have struggle with their speech, stuttering, severe, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But they want to become excellent communicators. That's who this is for. So I just wanted to preface this webinar and really everything else that we do by saying that, okay? Wonderful. So we are already into it, and we're going to be rolling now, talking about two things that you absolutely must have control over in order to crush your next interview. So I got a couple of questions that I want to try to post here. Let's see if I can post this one here. Just a couple of poll questions. And the first one is, and let me know if you can see this. Have you ever bombed an interview because of your speech? Okay. So let me know if you can see that. Good, good. It looks like you can see it. So go ahead and answer that. I'm just going to give you a minute or so to answer that. Okay. I'm also sharing my screen here. Let me know if you can see that and you can still see me okay. All right, great. So have you ever bombed an interview because of your speech? So right now it's about 50-50. Okay. All right. So we'll let you guys go ahead and go through that. So we're going to be talking today, once again, about the two things you must have control over to crush your next interview. So one thing I'd like for you to take a look at, something that I found, and you'll find different surveys that say different things, but most surveys are pretty consistent. In Bloomberg's 2016 job skills report, it showed that communication is the most desired skill recruiters look for, but also one of the hardest to find. Communication, right? So they're looking for people who are able to communicate effectively. And one of the first ways that they can determine this is in the what? in the interview. In the interview, they can see if you're able to communicate effectively. Now, some of you out there, in fact, many of my clients, I'd go as far as to say, most of my coaching clients and a lot of my self-study students, English is their second language. I have people literally from all over the world, and English is their second language. So if you have an accent, according to those with whom you're interviewing, so if you're interviewing here in the US or wherever, if you're needing to do that in English and you have an accent, and if you struggle with your speech, that kind of compounds the problem, right? So one of the things you don't want to do, you don't want to start out behind. You don't want to start out behind, right? You want to give yourself that edge, right? You want to give yourself that edge. So if you struggle with your speech, there is something that you can do about it. And so I'm going to be sharing with you just a couple of very, very simple things that you can focus on. It's absolutely necessary. And this applies also for people who don't stutter or stammer, right? Some of the same things apply. And I'll tell you a little story about one of my clients. She's a doctor, and she shared with me how someone did a couple of the things that I'm going to be sharing with you today. So the first thing that I want you to know is that you are 100% responsible and in control of both your life and your speech. 100% responsible and in control of your life and speech. Now, what do I mean? What are you responsible for, and what are you in control of? And it's very important that you understand and believe this, and I'll tell you why after we explain what you're responsible for and what you're in control over. You're responsible for how you respond to what happens to you in life. Now, there are some things that happen to us that we're not necessarily responsible for. We're not to blame for it. Blame and responsibility are not the same things. So you may have been born in a certain culture, born to a certain family, or born with certain characteristics. You're not responsible for that. That's not something that you did. However, you are responsible for what you do with that situation, for how you respond to it. Okay, you're 100% responsible for it. So people who grow up stuttering like I did, I grew up 2, 3, whatever, went to school, and all of a sudden found that I wasn't able to say the things I wanted. It's not something I believe I did to myself, right? But I had to deal with it. So I was, and I am 100% responsible for how I respond to the challenges that come my way. And that's easier said than done, but you still have to do it. And here's why. If you don't accept responsibility, then what you do is you try to put it on someone else. You try to give away responsibility to someone else. You try to blame someone else. You blame your parents, or you blame the universe, or you blame luck, or you said it was nothing. So you begin to feel like a victim. And when we feel like a victim, we're giving over responsibility and therefore control to something or someone else. And when we do that, we're less likely to take action or stick with the action because we're constantly feeling like it's out of our control. There's nothing I can do, or it's not my fault. I'm not to blame. Blame and responsibility are not the same things. You don't have to be to blame for something. It doesn't have to be your fault, but you are responsible for how you handle it and what you do. So you are responsible for working on your speech. And there are just too many people out there who have improved their speech and who are actors and who have been in the government and who are lawyers and doctors. And I've worked with many of them myself, who are now excellent speakers who have stuttered. Okay. So therefore, you're responsible and you can do something about it. Now, you're also in complete control. And this is where we're going to break it down, and we're going to talk about 2 things that you need to be in complete control of. I have 4 things listed, but we're only going to talk about 2 in this webinar because I feel like they're the 2 most important initially. I've got a little video series coming out that I want you to look for where we're going to go through each one of these. So be looking for that video series, okay? I'm going to walk through each one. Today we're going to talk about 2. You are in complete control. In fact, let me just back up. The law of control says that the more in control of your life you feel, the more in control of your life you are, or different aspects of your life, the more confident you feel, the better you feel about your life. You feel better when you feel like you have some control over certain areas and aspects of your life. So if you feel like your speech is out of control and that impacts your social life, ordering the food that you want, having conversations, expressing yourself, it feels like it's out of control. You never know when it's going to happen. If you feel like it's impacting your career and you're finding that you can't speak up in meetings when you want, or when you speak up, you're not sure if you're going to be able to say, so now you have to be scanning ahead and switching and dumbing down. So you feel like it's out of control. If you feel that way, you're not going to feel as good about yourself as you could, and you're not going to feel as confident as you could, and you're not going to take advantage of and create all of the opportunities that you could, because your speech has been holding you back and limiting you. When you are in control and you know you can do something about it, you feel more confident, you feel better, you actually start to get out there. Many of my coaching clients, when they start the program and they just start learning some tools and so forth, the first thing that happens is what? They feel more confident. They feel more confident. Because they feel more confident, what do? They actually get out and they start to speak more, and they start creating more successful speaking memories. Okay. So this is very important that you understand that you are responsible and you are in control. So let me just dip back over here and take a look at this poll. Great. So we see that 56%, yes, they've bombed, 44%. So it's pretty close. It's pretty close. All right. Let's just take that down. Great. All right. So you're responsible, you're in control. I've explained why you want to feel like you want to be in control, why you are responsible, whether you accept that or not. Let's talk about the two areas that you must feel like that you must take control of, that you actually have control over. As long as you understand it, you believe it, and you use it. And as we mentioned before, that there are several areas, but we're going to just talk about two today. And this first one is self-talk. Self-talk, what you say to yourself. So here's what I want you to know about self-talk. Often as we go through life, if you haven't been trained to and you're not aware, we simply drift and we float and we have what we call default thinking. We allow thoughts to come through our mind, right? We are not controlling and directing our train of thinking. I did a whole 3-part series on self-talk that you'll want to get your hands on. You can find that inside of our self-study. But this is one of the most important things. If you're not able to talk to yourself, it's very, very difficult to regulate, control your emotions. It's very, very difficult to set and achieve goals. It's very, very difficult to develop skills and change habits, right? If you're not able to talk to yourself. So if you have an interview coming up, leading up to this interview, one of the things you must be able to do is to talk to yourself, right? To talk to yourself. So probably asking, what is it that I'm supposed to be saying to myself leading up to the interview? What am I supposed to say to myself? So let's take a look at something. What are you supposed to say to yourself? So we're going to come back to that slide in just a moment. So self-talk. Let's talk about the content, right? A couple of areas that are very important. One of them has to do with the content of what you say to yourself. And this is before or leading up to the interview. Before leading up to the interview, there's content, and there's also something that we'll call frequency, content and frequency. So what should you be saying to yourself leading up to the interview? So first, we are establishing that you need to have a rich inner talk self-talk life, where you're talking to yourself, where you're encouraging yourself. Self-talk doesn't just mean affirmations, saying affirmations. It means encouraging yourself, saying things like, it's okay, relax, take your time, you can do this, right? So you're relaxing yourself, you're telling yourself to relax, you're telling yourself to focus on this, do this, whatever, right? So the content of what you should be saying to yourself, a couple of things. Number one, you want to reframe the interview, right? Reframe the interview. Look at it like a positive challenge, right? Look at it like a positive challenge. So you want to reframe and you want to tell yourself that you're excited about the interview. So let me just write that word down. Tell yourself that you're excited about the interview. You're excited about the interview. Why is this important? Here's why. If you allow yourself to think, to sense, to feel that you're anxious and nervous, which is quite normal, but if you feel like I'm anxious, I'm nervous about this upcoming interview, then that is going to cause your body to respond in a certain way where you start to worry, right? You start to worry. You may not even prepare as well because every time you think about the interview, it causes you to become anxious and nervous. So then you start avoiding the preparation of it, right? You start to get a shortness of breath because it starts to constrict certain vessels that allow you to produce more oxygen, and so, which is inside your lungs, and so you actually get short of breath. And when you don't have as much oxygen as you need, you get tired more often. You're not able to think as clearly. Okay, so that's if you're anxious and nervous. But when you're excited about something, it feels similar, but the difference is now you have more energy, right? You have more energy and you're able to perform better and you're feeling good about it and you're able to positively think about the interview. So here's a key, here's a secret. And here's what I do. Every time I have something coming up, like a presentation or whatever, and I think about it and I train myself to do this, rather than worry about it, I plan for it. So I use the same time. Now listen to this. This is very, very important. You're going to anticipate that interview. You're going to anticipate, meaning you're going to think about it. The only difference is, or the only question is, how you think about it. You're going to think about it. How do you think about it? Do you worry about it? Are you anxious? Or are you excited? And are you practicing, preparing? Are you planning for it? So what I help my clients do, I help them understand, and what I give them very, very specific activities is I help them plan for, prepare for that interview every time they think about it. So now, if you think about it 100 times before the interview, you're practicing 100 times. Whereas this person over here that doesn't know this, every time they think about it, they're worrying 100 times. They're worrying. Do you see the difference? One, you're excited, you're practicing, you're preparing. The other, you're worrying. So which one's going to perform better, more than likely? The one that's practiced 100 times rather than one that's worried 100 times. Does that make sense? So it's all in reframing and what you do with that period of anticipation. So the content of your thoughts has to be, hey, I'm excited about it. And how can I perform well? You've heard me talk about Rick and Vic. I won't get into that today, but that's something that I walk through with my clients. It's in our self-study. Rick and Vic helps you keep your mind focused on what's going to help you perform well, right? It helps give you content for what you should be saying to yourself, the content. What do I say to myself? What do I think? It's very important. Now, let's talk about the frequency, right? The frequency. So when we say frequency, we're talking about how often you think about it. So we just kind of covered that the more you plan and you prepare and you tell yourself you're excited, the better prepared you're going to be, the better off you're going to be. However, if the frequency of worrying and thinking about the words that you're not going to be able to say and hoping that you don't get stuck, if you're thinking about that frequently, then you're simply building up more anxiety, more nervousness, and you're probably going to have a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're probably not going to do well because that's what you're thinking. That's literally what you're planning for, is to fail, right? So the content before the actual interview, the content that is all of the days and weeks and months leading up to the interview, what are you thinking about? What do you think, and how are you thinking about it? And how often are you thinking about it? Okay. So there's plenty of great programs out there to help you structure and prepare for your interview questions. I do have my clients practice their presentations with me and often their interviewing skills. And I say, okay, make sure that you do this, focus on that. And we'll meet and we'll talk about that. And 98% of them, 99%, if they've been doing the work, they do extremely well. They're like, wow, that was great. So, and we'll talk about some examples, but content and frequency in terms of self-talk. Okay. So let's take a look now at the second thing. So let's do a quick review. Number one, you're responsible for your life and for your speech. I'm not, no one else is, you are. You have to accept that first. You are in control. You are in control. And to the degree that you believe that and you accept that control, you will be able to level up your speech, take your speech to that next level when you believe that you're in control. There's at least 4 things that you're in direct control over. We're talking about 2 today. And the first one we talked about is what you say to yourself, your self-talk. When you are anticipating an interview or whatever, you have control over what you say to yourself. Now, if you don't think that you do, then you won't. Now, here's the thing. You got to understand, just because you talk to yourself once doesn't mean those negative thoughts won't come back. I had one client say that they were in an interview or meeting or something, and like 100 times, whatever the number was a high number, they had to keep reminding themselves, relax, slow down, relax, slow down, right? Just had to keep reminding themselves that. So you're going to have to keep substituting the negative thoughts for as long as you need to. And here's something that many people say is, I say, well, I can't think about that. I can't talk to myself if I'm focusing on the interviewer and answering the questions. Well, yes, you can. Yes, you can. You have enough mental capacity to, in between, remind yourself that you're excited, to remind yourself to relax, to slow down, to take your time. You don't have to rush. These are all things you learn in Pro 90D, all things that I share with you when I'm working with you. Relax, slow down, take your time. You don't have to rush. Relax, right? We'll talk about that in a minute. So as you're doing that, you have time to do that. Why? We know that you have time because what people will tell me is they're in the interview, sometimes they'll begin to tell themselves or think, uh-oh, here comes a word that I can't say. So I got to think of this word. Well, they're talking to themselves right then, or they're saying, man, I hope they don't ask me the name of my school. Right? So just the fact that they're anticipating and they're thinking about scanning ahead for words that they might have trouble with proves the fact that they're actually able to talk to themselves right there in the interview, in the moment. You can do it. You already do it. Probably what happens is you may be doing it to the detriment, right? You may be having destructive thoughts, destructive, negative self-talk, as opposed to constructive, positive self-talk. So you can shift, you can change that train of thinking by just being aware of what you need to say and practicing saying it, repeating it over and over, okay? So self-talk is one thing that you absolutely have control over, and you must take control if you want to do well. I will tell you, self-talk is probably the most important thing, right? It's hard to even tell yourself to relax and slow down unless you're actually telling yourself to relax and slow down. It's hard for you to articulate the thoughts and the responses and the answers unless you're able to tell yourself, relax, slow down, it's okay, you don't have to rush, right? Unless you're able to talk to yourself, it's really hard to perform well, okay? Unless you don't have a problem with this. If you don't have a problem with this, then you probably won't need to talk to yourself as much. So then you probably wouldn't be on this webinar, right? All right, let's take a look at the next thing. This is something that we talked about just a couple of minutes ago, and it's probably the second most important thing, and that is to remind yourself to relax, slow down, and breathe. Some people actually forget to breathe, okay? Some people actually forget to breathe. So, believe it or not, if you keep reminding yourself, relax, slow down, take your time, you don't have to rush, right? You don't have to say that if you don't want, but sometimes that helps when you say, I don't have to rush. I can slow down. I can take my time. Just relax. It's okay. You can say it's okay and breathe, right? So you want to remind yourself to breathe, and then you want to physically breathe. You want to breathe deeper. You want to breathe more consistently. Why is this critically important to interviews? Well, if you're in an interview and you're tense and you're uptight and you're nervous, and if you struggle, if you stutter or stammer, let's just get it out there. If you stutter, even people who don't stutter or stammer, sometimes in interviews stutter or stammer, or they talk too fast. Okay. Why? Because they want to rush through it because they're nervous and they're anxious. So some of the reasons why you want to relax, why you want to slow down, why you want to breathe. Number one, you don't want to talk too fast because it'll be difficult for the person to understand what you're saying. If you talk too fast, you may not answer the question accurately. My wife was telling me a while back, she was in some kind of an interview, and the girl was very, very smart, very intelligent, but didn't really answer the question. She was just rushing through. She would cut the interviewer off, start answering immediately after the interview, ask the question. She didn't pause, she talked too fast, didn't answer all the questions. So when you're anxious or nervous, and it's because she was anxious, right? Anxious or nervous, you're going to find that you rush, you speak too fast, they don't understand what you're saying, you may not answer the question completely, and you may start fumbling over your words, right? Start to actually stutter. You may find that you don't have enough air, which is something that happens to people even when they're not in a higher pressure situation like an interview. They don't have enough air, right? So of course this happens to you in a high pressure situation. So you don't have enough air, then you start blocking, getting stuck, then you can barely say anything. Then it just goes downhill from there. So remember yourself to breathe. Also, you lose your train of thought. Once you become anxious and you're not getting enough oxygen and you're feeling anxious, then you can't even remember the things that you want and need to say that you already know. You know what to say, you just can't even remember it then. So how do you fix it? You keep reminding yourself, like you verbally, at least internally, verbally remind yourself to relax, to slow down, and to breathe. Now, I'll just throw this in as a bonus. One of the things that my clients do that helps them is they use a 777 breathing exercise. They'll do this leading up to the interview. They'll do it just before the interview. And it helps them control their breathing and it helps them relax. So 777 breathing exercise can be very, very helpful for you in that kind of a speaking situation. So 2 things that you have control over, these are huge. Once again, this webinar is not designed to tell you, because that stuff you can learn anywhere. You can go out and you can say, okay, use this framework to answer the questions, or I can look that up on the internet. How do you answer the questions? Right. Anyone can find that. This stuff, and I'm telling you now, is specifically to help you be able to think well, to be relaxed, to project confidence, to be more persuasive. These are the little secrets that sometimes you might not know. And especially for those of you that tend to struggle with your speech, these are the 2 big ones. Check your emails because we're going to talk about all of these, but these are the 2 big ones. It's what you say to yourself, the content. What are you saying to yourself? Relax, slow down. You're really looking forward to this, right? Okay, I want to make sure that I'm answering these questions accurately. Remember Vic and Rick, you can go back and check out some of my other webinars or get my course where we talk about that. Vic or Rick, right? And then a frequency, you might have to do this. You will have to do this. In fact, not might. You will have to repeat these things over and over and over and over again. Don't just think you can do it once or twice. You may have to do it 100 times or more. Just keep substituting those negative thoughts, those anxious thoughts, which are normal and natural, but you got to keep substituting them out with these more encouraging ones so that you take control. Okay. And then we talked about breathing, relaxing, reminding yourself to breathe, relax, and slow down, and to actually take deeper breaths. You breathe deeper and you breathe more frequently, right? Take deeper breaths. So here's a little story that one of my clients told me. And she said that she's a doctor and she lives in India. And her brother-in-law recently passed away, and they were at the funeral. And someone else was going up to talk on the stage about her brother-in-law. And there's over 1,000 people there. And she was just imagining, she was putting herself in this particular situation. Her heart was pounding. She said, man, if I was up there, would I even be able to speak now, right? Not just because there's 1,000 people, there's 1,000 people. It's a funeral, and there's a lot of emotion and stuff involved. So this other gentleman got up, and she said it was very inspiring and comforting. He got up, and he just stood there with the mic, right? Just stood there, and he breathed, and he spoke very slowly, right? He said, it's very hard for me to speak right now, right? So he just extended his words. I call it extending. You can call it whatever you want. He extended his words. Didn't use a lot of words initially, and he took his time. And she said that she actually felt more relaxed by his presence and by the way he spoke, by the way he just took his time. So it was 1,000 people. It's at a funeral. That's what he did so that he would be able to speak. People do this. I've done it plenty of occasions. Just breathe, relax, and take your time. Don't worry about if someone's rushing you or if you're thinking, because you'll have a belief that, people are not going to wait. There's probably some people who won't, but that's on them. You just take your time so you can perform well. Okay. So that's one very, very real thing that's happened. So I want to just share with you, this is huge here. It's a guy named David. Speech was severe. I mean, very, very severe, almost every other word or whatever. And very, very smart guy. And he was interviewing, just couldn't make it through the interviews. And so you can read this. I will send this to you by email so you can read this. But he worked with me. We were just working together for a very short time. And he went to an interview, and the person said, just from working with me for a very, very short period of time, the interviewer said, wow, this was a great interview. Like, you don't get a lot of people that say over and over how good the interview was unless it was halfway decent. So here you get a guy who's severe stutterer, severe. I'm like that, going into a high pressure speaking situation, and the guy spoke so well. The guy's great interview. And he ended up getting the job. And listen to this. He increased his salary by $34,000. I'm not saying he got a job making $34,000. I'm saying he increased his salary by $34,000. Now, whatever he paid, $2,000 or $3,000 for the coaching, he 10x'd it. He more than 10x'd his investment. If you're out there and you're struggling with your speech, and you're worried and you're trying to do this on your own, I'm just telling you that if you have interviews coming up or presentations coming up, and it's something that can impact your income, as long as you do the work, the coaching is an investment that you can get a financial return on. So you don't look at this like an expense. Like, okay, I'm going to pay this. I hope it works. But if you hope that it works, then don't do it. You got to know that this is going to work. You have to believe that it's going to work. If you do the work, it'll work. 10x what he earned. Someone else, young guy, was working. You'll hear me talk about him sometime. Came in, had some interviews lined up. His previous interviews he wasn't doing that well on, but he was working in a bank, so his speech wasn't severe, but wasn't great. And when he got under pressure, that's when his speech really began to break down, like interviews, right? So here he is. He quickly landed a job after we had been working together again for a very short period of time, quickly landed a job that almost doubled his salary. And then what? And then he went and got another job because he had another interview lined up and increased his salary even more. So whatever he paid, and this guy's just gotten out of college, didn't have a lot of money. I think he paid most of the money that he had saved up in his bank at the time because he knew it was something that was going to be an investment that was going to get him a return on investment for his speech. He did it, made the money back just like that in his first job. So you got to look at it like an investment. Then finally, here's one, a young lady that I worked with several years ago, still in touch with her, still doing well, right? Now, her speech is not perfect, neither is mine, but it's doing very well. And her speech was severe as well. Severe. These are not people where you look at them and you talk to them and you say, oh, they don't even stutter. No, you could see it, right? And she didn't have the confidence to apply for these other jobs. She was qualified for it, just didn't have confidence because of her speech. Had trouble introducing herself, would avoid things, and so forth and so on. Very, very smart, very sharp. And so we worked together. We worked together to prepare her speech for her interview and for life as well. And she got that job. And this was several years ago, right? She got the job and is making a lot more money now. Okay. So whatever, again, she invested in the coaching, she got back who knows how many times. Who knows how many. Often it's a 10x, right? It's a 10x. 10 times, you make 10 times as much back as whatever you invested in the coaching. That's not always the case, but often it is. So what we want you to understand here is that if you've got interviews coming up, number one, there's a couple of things that you need to have absolute control over and that you can control and that you do control. One is what you say to yourself, what you think, your self-talk. You cannot let yourself fall into default thinking. Do not let yourself be fooled by the stuttering mindset, which says you don't have time, you don't have the energy or effort to think about relaxing and slowing down because you've got to answer these questions. That's not true. Yes, you do have to answer the questions, but it's not true that you can't remind yourself to relax, to slow down, to take your time, to breathe, because you can and you must. Okay, you must. Second thing that you have control over is your breathing. Your breathing. You must control your breathing, especially in that moment, right? You have to take deeper breaths and more frequent breaths. And once you make it through the first several minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it is for you, you're going to find that you're able to then create a nice rhythm and flow to your speech. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to invite you to book a session with me. And Myra's going to post a couple of links here. Myra, go ahead and post those links if you can. You can post it in a couple of areas. One, in the chat, and post it as the call to action if you can. So go up into the action box and we'll send you an email on this. But again, this is not going to be for all of you. So that's why I told you right up front. I'm going to give you a couple of things that you can use right now. Boom. You can control what you think. You can control your breathing. These are critical, crucial things. And you'll find that when you go into an interview, if you don't have control over these things, you're done. You're done. You got to control your thinking. Have to control your breathing. There's a couple of other things that I'll be sending you in a little video series starting this week. So you're going to look for that. But if you want to accelerate your progress, take your speech to the next level, what I've found is that the people who work with me one-on-one, they get it done. They get it done. If you're out there working on your own, a few things are going to happen. Number one, we don't know what we don't know. So there's stuff that you just don't know, right? And you need someone who's experienced, who's worked with people, who's gone through it himself, who's looked at the science and so forth, and can say, this is what you need to focus on. Right? This is what you need to focus on now. So you simply You want to accelerate your progress. There's stuff you're not going to know, and we all need someone else to tell us that. But there's stuff that you do know, right? You've been watching the videos, you've been listening to the audios, you have the self-study or not, whatever, and maybe you know what to do, but we need someone to remind us to do it, to encourage us. Sometimes we forget, oh, that's right, you did tell me that. Or, oh yeah, I did read that. I do know that. We need someone to remind us of that. Another thing that happens when you're working on your own is you will get discouraged, right? You'll have a great day, a great speaking week, and all of a sudden you'll get stuck and you'll start doubting. It's a stuttering mindset. You'll start doubting whether or not this is really working, whether you're on the right track. Then you'll start looking around for different programs, different techniques and tricks and stuff, and you never really get any traction, right? Never really get any traction. So you're jumping around, getting discouraged. So you go through a dip for weeks or whatever, and then you come back out of it again, right? Keep doing the same thing. Or you actually do well. And then you say, okay, wow, I'm doing well. I got it. And so then you stop doing all the stuff you were doing to help you get there. And then you find yourself sliding back. So that's another cycle. You do well, you stop, you slide back, you do well, and you just keep going through these cycles. So can this happen when you coach? Absolutely. All of this people can regress. However, you do the coaching to give yourself the very best chance to do as well as you can, as quickly as you can. So when people do the coaching, I found that they improve 10 times as fast. I know that number sounds like I'm pulling that out of the air, but actually I've looked at it. And what tends to happen is people who are on my list, watching the videos, listening to the audios, they're on there sometimes for years. Often 2 years is the average, 2 or 3 years. Some people have been on there for 8 or 9 years. I've been out for a long time now, more than 10 years. And then they'll come in, and within 2 to 3 months, they're much further along than they were when they started with me, where they had been working on their own for years. Okay. So I'm not making these numbers up. I'm just telling you, when you have a coach, it will accelerate your progress. That's why I have a coach. So people get discouraged and they tend to quit. And then the other thing is, when you're working on your own, sometimes you don't know what to focus on. So we kind of use the 80-20 rule. And we find that for every person, there's 1 or 2 things that they can focus on that will give them 80, 85, 90, sometimes 95% of their results. Just 1 or 2 things. Just focus on this. You might not know what those things are. You might have to figure it out. I can look at you, I can talk to you, and I can say, boom, maybe after almost instantly or after 20 minutes, 15 minutes, I can say, this is what you need to work on, right? And I only do that in our coaching sessions. I only do that because I can help you then stay focused on those things. All right. So that being said, does anyone have any questions? Let me go look at the question and answer. And let me get out of this slide here. All right. Here's a question. Hi, Michael. I've started your program practicing new speaking and modeling. Let's see if I can see this whole question here. I can speak smoothly in front of my family, but it applied outside in high pressure, chest becomes tight. Okay. So, yeah. So there's times where you go through these phases where you're learning something, and there are certain situations and certain people where you can start to perform well, but then in high pressure, it's more difficult, right? And so here's what has to happen. Number one, you have to put yourself in more high pressure situations. Number two, you have to apply what you've learned in those high pressure situations. You have to be more aware and conscious of what you're doing in the high pressure situations. That awareness and consciousness actually comes from your being in the higher pressure situations and learning to deal with that pressure, with that situation. We can talk about it all day long, but you actually have to do it. So if you've been speaking with your families, because you've been speaking with your family frequently and you've learned how to do it. You've learned how to regulate your thoughts and your emotions and your speech in that situation. So now you got to go out. You got to put yourself in high pressure situations and regulate, right? And be aware and do those things. If you just keep going out, putting yourself in high pressure situations and not applying what, then you're just creating more and more negative speaking experiences. So you have to find the one or two things that you need to focus on to level up your speech under pressure. So the answer is you got to put yourself under pressure and apply what you're doing more often. Okay. All right. Let's see. Any other questions? Any other questions that we have? Okay. Good. Very good. Very good. Very good. Okay, guys, we're going to wrap up. I wanted to try to do this webinar as efficiently as I could. Remember, you don't need a whole bunch of information to change your speech, to change your life. All you need is one or two really good pieces of information to change the whole direction of it. Really one. So I've given you at least two. Hopefully you've gotten more. We talked about controlling what you think, leading up to the moment, and controlling what you think in the moment. I'm telling you that right there, I've talked to so many clients and they say, oh, well, like I would ask them, okay, what were you thinking? What were you telling us? Well, I couldn't think about anything. Everything just went out the window, right? So you got to train yourself to control your self-talk, okay? You have to. Same thing, breathing. Got to control your breathing. Have to control your breathing. So if just one of those things, that's going to help you it's going to help you crush your next interview just by controlling what you think, just by controlling your breathing. If you want to accelerate your progress and you're an intelligent professional, you're ambitious, you don't just want to stop stuttering, but you want to become an excellent speaker, then I want you to go ahead and book your free private consultation with me right now. Myra's going to put the link up. Again, she's put it in the chat box. She'll put it up again. And you'll also get an email. So go ahead and do that. If you have questions, please feel free to ask us. Now, I've got another poll that I want to launch here. Just a couple more real quick. So do you have an upcoming interview? Do you have an upcoming interview? Would love to know that. And then we have another one. Would you like me to help you with that interview? Now, some of you may say, well, no, I think I'll just try it on my own. That's okay. If you do want me to help you, then book your free private consultation. Do you have an interview coming up? If you do, how much is that job going to be worth to you? Think about that. Okay. So let's see. We've got 50-50 saying yes. All right. One person says yes, they'd like for me to help them. If you have an interview coming up, you want me to help you, I can help you. No one can guarantee anything, but I tell you what, I've helped lots of people do their PhDs. One guy was right in the middle of what? More questions. Okay. One guy was right in the middle of $1 million, not takeover, but he was selling his company. And he wanted to take his speech up to another level. I mean, he was very successful. He owned his own accounting firm. His firm was about to be bought by a much, much larger multinational firm. And he wanted to take his speech to the next level so that he could do the meetings more comfortably and so forth. And we worked together. This guy's, doing super well, obviously. And of course, the sale went through. Not that it wouldn't have gone through if it weren't for the coaching. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying he's a professional and he knew he needed to take his speech to the next level. So we got people who are at PhD level, who are medical doctors, who are entrepreneurs, but you got to do the work. And this can help take your speech to the next level. So let's see, we got another question or two here. All right. We got two questions. Let me answer those. During the one-on-one sessions with you, Michael, would there be any high-pressure scenarios I'd be taking part to enable me to practice what I've learned? That's a great question. We do have, in fact, we have one coming up on Tuesday. We have a speakers club. And as long as the participation remains constant, we'll continue to do that. So that's one situation where you would be able to practice. However, I've been doing this for years. The very, very best thing for you is to go out and create your own high pressure speaking situations. I did it some 20 years ago. I actually went out to schools. I created a presentation that I wanted to give. This was right around the time that I was just starting to come out of stuttering. I said, I'd like to volunteer to do this presentation. And I went out and started doing presentations. That's what got me started. So you can create your own higher pressure speaking situations if you look for them. It may just mean speaking up in work more often. I spoke up at work more often. I would volunteer to do trainings. I would ask questions. So you can create higher pressure speaking. Some people go out and apply for jobs and do interviews, jobs that they didn't really want. So the answer to your question is, yes, there's some, but I wouldn't depend on them. I would depend on your creating your own. Those are going to be so much better, and there could be so many more. Okay. I will prepare you for them. There's Toastmasters. Hopefully you would have that in your area. That's like one of the huge ones that many of my clients go through. So there's plenty that you can create and take advantage of, and those are the ones that I would encourage you to do. Okay. I hope that answered your question. Okay, Teresa, you find that you avoid eye contact when your speech suffers. Do you have any suggestions on how to not do that? Yes, this is actually going to sound oversimplified, but it's really not. In one of my older versions of Pro 90D, what I would do is just tell people, I would actually have people, okay, focus your eyes forward, focus your eyes on me. Literally, you have to be aware that you're doing it. And then you have to start, how can I say, gradually change that habit of looking up and to the right, looking down. You have to start focusing your eyes mostly. Now, you don't want to stare at the person like this, right? Because then that gets kind of crazy. You want to start focusing your eyes more on that person. So the answer is you simply have to first set an implementation intention. That is, you intend to start making better eye contact, but something has to go along with that. You have to start improving your speech, because if you're focusing on them and you're still stuttering, you're probably not going to want to focus on them, right? So you have to improve your speech along with telling yourself that you're going to start maintaining better eye contact. And then you're going to pick a conversation and say, I'm going to maintain better eye contact. I'm going to remind myself to maintain better eye contact with the people that I speak with. And then in at least one conversation a day, you focus on maintaining better eye contact. So you just literally have to tell yourself to do it and start doing it. But you also need to start improving, if you already haven't, improving your speech along with that. Okay. So hopefully that answers your question. All right. Great. Thank you guys for being here. Look forward to working with those of you for whom this qualifies, for whom this fits. You've got the links. Check out the page. Let's have a conversation. Let's get started. My schedule is filling up. We do have a special that I'm going to be running for the next couple of weeks. And here's that special. The rates for my coaching will go up by about $300 in 2 weeks. So if you want to get the coaching at the current rate, which is the lowest rate, you're going to want to go ahead and book your consultation with me now, right? Because after 2 weeks, everything goes up by about $300, which is still very, 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 very reasonable. Very, very reasonable. You can check the market. But it's an investment. But it is going to, so you can save $300 by speaking with me now. And this stuff really works. It's worked. All right. So thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you guys. I hope that you had a good experience here today. Check your emails. You're going to get several from me. Again, if this information wasn't right for you, go ahead and unsubscribe from the list so you don't keep getting information. But check your emails. You're going to get a replay. You're going to get a link to the slides, and you're going to get a series over the next couple of weeks walking through each and every one of these in just a little more detail. All right. So we'll see you later. If you're finally ready to stop worrying about stuttering You're finally ready to overcome that stuttering mindset. In fact, to eliminate that and the stuttering speech that goes along with that. If you're ready to do away with that, and you're ready to finally begin to focus on the message and how you can engage people and how you can enjoy your conversations, then I want to invite you to schedule a free private consultation with me. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a look at where you are right now with your speech and at where you want to go. And then I'm going to tell you exactly how we can help you get there. And then it'll be up to you. So I just want to encourage you to take that step. If you're a professional and you're tired of having to worry constantly about whether or not you're going to be able to perform well, you're tired of avoiding speaking situations, you're simply tired of not being able to say the things that you want. It's almost like you're imprisoned in your own mind. You got stuff you want to say, just can't get it out. And maybe you've tried other things. And in fact, I just talked with a gentleman just the other day, and he said one of the things that he likes about this program is that we not only deal with the physical aspect of speech, but we also deal with the mental, the psychological aspect. Because for many people, it is mostly psychological. For many, not for all. For most, it's both, right? It's a little bit of both. So we have to address both things. The other thing that we deal with is helping you transform your speaking identity. To go from having this stuttering mindset, seeing yourself, believing that you're going to struggle, that you do struggle, that there are certain words in there, from being there, having that mindset, that identity, to one where you literally see, like you know, that you can say whatever you want, whenever you want, wherever you want. That you are actually an excellent speaker. You feel this, you know it. Doesn't mean that you don't get stuck sometimes, but you know that you're an excellent speaker, and other people affirm that. You see yourself that way, you believe it, and you actually perform that way. So if you would like to be there, then I want to invite you right now to book your free private consultation with me, and let's take you from wherever you are now to wherever you want to be. Just remember this. Where could you be in just 3 short months? Where could you be in 6 months or a year? Since it's 3 months. Well, somebody else said that they can do it in 3 days. Well, if somebody tells you that you can do something, you can totally transform your speech and have it stick in a few days or even a few weeks, they're not being truthful with you, because your brain simply cannot change and stay changed unless you do something, you practice it consistently over time in various speaking situations. So if I were up here telling you that this is quick and it's easy, then you'd know I'd be lying to you. But I'm not telling you that. I'm telling you it's challenging and it's going to take time. But guess what? The time's going to go by anyway. 3 months are going to go by regardless. You're going to be 3 months older. The question is, will your speech be transformed? Will it be any different? Will you be feeling more relaxed? Will you be feeling more confident? Will people be telling you, wow, you're speaking better? 6 months is going to go by. Years going to go by. Will you be able to look back and go, wow, look at where I was a year ago. Look at where I'm at now. That's the only question. So I want to invite you to schedule that free consultation with me, and I'm super excited about working with you. Let's just see you in 3 months and have you smiling and going, wow, man, I feel so much more relaxed. One of my clients just told me, I feel so much more relaxed. I sleep better. I'm able to dream better. I feel better about myself. I'm able to be more social and engage people instead of avoiding people. If you're ready for that, book your free consultation with me now. My name is Michael Williams. Look forward to seeing you.